Hello everyone, it's Theme Park Avenue. I am Eric, back with a brand new park review. In this review, I am going to talk about Kings Island in Mason, Ohio, and discuss why it might be the best amusement park in the US. Now before we begin, I must make clear I will not be doing my usual style where I go through my entire trip. Instead, I will analyze the specific elements on their own, mostly independent of what order I did them in and such like that. Also, subscribe to the channel so you know when new theme park content comes out. Let's begin the review. So I'll make it clear, I went during Labor Day weekend 2022. My most recent visit beforehand was in 2016. It had been quite a while, 2 new coasters added, a lot of new changes, and a lot of people saying it's the best Cedar Fair park. So let's see if that was true. So on Labor Day weekend, the Friday night was not too packed, the Saturday was pretty busy, and the Sunday morning was also relatively quiet. So that's pretty much how crowds were. Let's go into the roller coasters. First of all, Mystic Timbers is the one we're going to talk about because it is my favorite. Mystic Timbers is an awesome ride. It is a top 10 roller coaster for me, and I hear so many people say Kings Island lacks a standout roller coaster, but I would definitely say this stands out. Not literally because it's kind of short, but it makes up for that with unbelievable airtime. You really get thrown out of your seat. The pacing is relentless, the ride does not feel short. Most RMCs could not match this thing. It absolutely deserves all the praise it gets, and for me, it deserves little of the overrated comments that it gets, because it's really not a ride that I would say has any element that should be improved, because I don't think there's anything I could possibly change about it to make it better. The shed exists, but not a whole lot to say about that. Mystic Timbers is simply an awesome ride. Then Diamondback is my second favorite here. Diamondback is another phenomenal ride. As far as B&M hypers, I would say it is the best one. I've had trimless night rides on it, and that's pretty hard to beat. The setting is better than most of the hypers. The airtime is pretty much unbeatable. It's more forceful than most, the water splash is fun, and the small moments really just add a lot to this experience, making it pretty much my favorite of all B&Ms besides like 2. It's simply that good. Then we have Orion. Orion is literally right next to Diamondback in my overall rankings. I kind of think it could technically be better, but I don't know. The main thing that holds it back for me is that it feels short, unlike Diamondback, but it's a great ride. Both B&Ms that I mentioned so far are perfectly smooth. This one's first drop seems like it goes on forever, and that is a huge benefit. I love the first drop, the wave turn, and the speed hill. Those are awesome elements as well, though I will admit, other parts are not quite as strong, and I think if the other elements were as powerful as those, this could easily be number 1 in the park, and one of the best roller coasters out there. And while it's still one of the best coasters, it's not necessarily a top 10 kind of thing. I think it's probably still in my top 20, and let's talk about that for a minute. There are 3 roller coasters at Kings Island I have in my top 20 out of around 300 roller coasters. That's a pretty good start, right? Well, it gets better from there, because number 4, Banshee, and number 5, The Beast, make up one of the best top 5s I've ever experienced. Let's talk Banshee. Banshee is the best B&M invert by a little bit. I love Montu, and I'd say it's not quite as intense or relentless, but it does have some things Montu does not, such as an elite first drop. The first drop on Banshee is insane. It completely pulls you over the side in a way no other invert can. The 0G roll has some of the best hang time. The rest of the elements, glass smooth, forceful, and fun. And it is a long ride, and I love the grand scale of it. Night rides are hard to beat, and I'm confused by the main roughness complaint, but I guess I just always get the correct train. Either way, Banshee's my favorite invert, and that makes it a pretty strong number 4. The Beast, of course, being number 5, that one's tough. The night ride is the main reason why I love the Beast. Day rides are fun, and would still be number 5 in the park, but not by a huge margin. It's pretty great. You have that final moment being pretty fast, but at night this thing is completely different. I never imagined Beast night rides could not be overhyped, but they aren't. They're insane. Especially if you go during rain. Weirdly, that's an awesome experience. I absolutely love being in that forested setting, going through this massive layout. And the final part, I feared for my life. You're on that weird bank, gradually building up speed until suddenly you feel like you're going the speed of Orion. It is pretty much the best roller coaster experience you can ever have. No night ride is better. And I think if I only rode Beasts at night, or if day rides felt exactly like night rides, this would be at least number 4 in the park. It's that good. So in terms of top 5s, I would say the only top 5 I prefer is Cedar Point. And yes, that is without Top Thrill Dragster. I still think Steel Vengeance, Millennium Force, Maverick, Gatekeeper, and Raptor is overall better. I'll say Raptor is probably not as good as the Beast, but Steel Vengeance and Millennium Force blow the other rides out of the water. Maverick bests all except Mystic Timbers, and Gatekeeper is around Banshee level. Now let's talk about the supporting coasters. I wouldn't say any of the supporting rides are great hidden gems, but they're all great roller coasters. They're, well, good. That's the best way to put it. Great's a nice word, but I guess great's better than good, so we'll stick with good for now. Flight of Fear is inconsistent. It is sometimes smooth, fast, forceful, and better than the outdoor spaghetti bowl rides like Poltergeist and Joker's Jinx, but the other ride I had was painful and much worse. Overall, I would say it's probably around the same level as the outdoor ones. A fun ride. I like the idea, the theme is fun, the launch is a bit weak. The elements are mostly good. Unfortunately, this being number 6, it is a massive step down from number 5, but that's mostly okay because of just how good the top 5 is. Then you have Racer, a good ride for sure. First half has a strong airtime, second half has some pretty relentless moments at points, but it's also sometimes way rougher and overall less enjoyable. It's good, great at night, doesn't always race, and as far as racing wooden coasters go, it's nothing on American Eagle, but it's still a good ride. Then you have Invertigo. Some people hate Invertigo. I think it's awesome. Perfectly smooth, one of the most forceful of all of the Vekoma boomerangs. The inverted ones are better except for Goliath at New England when that was a thing. And all in all, it's a very strong number 8 for a park, and I think most parks would kill to have this as one of their top 3 attractions. So that does speak to how many great rides Kings Island does technically have. Then you have Backlot Stunt Coaster at number 5, and yes, at this point we're at the family coasters. Not a whole lot past this point for major thrills. Backlot has some surprisingly intense moments though. The Helix, even the launches and the airtime, they're pretty good. I love this family coaster for its nice little theme. It's actually one of the better theme roller coasters, period, in America. And the one thing I don't like is that the indoor portion is just kind of boring and rather disappointing if you're really looking for good elements inside. Maybe that's because I had ridden Flight of Fear not long before this. But overall, Backlot is a very strong family coaster. Then you have the Bat, a good number 10 for the park. Some love this one, but I'd say while it has a few intense moments compared to most other Aero suspended coasters and a great setting, it is short. There's just not a lot of swinging on this ride, and there's not a whole lot I remember. It's a fine roller coaster, and one of the better suspended coasters, but barely. Then after that, we have Adventure Express, great mine train overall. As far as other roller coasters go, it's just solid, but I think it is great for mine trains. The theme is well done, the setting is nice, night rides are awesome, it's smooth, really nothing to complain about. I overall enjoy it. Flying Ace Aerial Chase, not a great inverted coaster, okay for families, but not the worst of the model, though I would never ride it again. Woodstock Express, I do not enjoy, I would never ride it again. It is built for kids, and I think if you're taller than like 5 feet, you probably will not want to sit in this car. It is very tight. And then of course, Great Pumpkin Coaster is an awesome ride. The real number 1 of the park, and that's kind of the saving grace. But in all seriousness, when we talk roller coasters, it is an insane lineup, and not enough people give it credit for being an awesome roller coaster collection. When people compare this park to Cedar Point, they always say, The roller coasters might be better at Cedar Point, but every other aspect is so much better at Kings Island. No. Some elements are better, but it's a rather even match in those regards, to an extent. Maybe better overall, but not really insanely above Cedar Point. But at the same time, the roller coaster quality is not far off from Cedar Point at all. They have so much to enjoy here. It's a well-rounded lineup. I might say more well-rounded than Cedar Point in terms of thrill levels, but if you're going for a lot of thrilling coasters, it's definitely not as good as Cedar Point. But when you look at the insane top 5 they have great B&M models, they have awesome wooden coasters, they have launch coasters, admittedly a bit weaker. They have so much to enjoy here. I will say, for my personal taste, I prefer the lineup of Cedar Point in terms of what they have, because I enjoy B&M roller coasters, and they have 4, and they counteract the lack of a B&M Hyper and Giga by having Millennium Force and Steel Vengeance as Hypers and Gigas, so can't really argue with that. And while I love Cedar Point's roller coaster collection, I do have to say Kings Island is very close. I definitely don't think it's going to change anytime soon that I prefer Cedar Point, but there's not a single collection outside of Cedar Point that competes with Kings Island. But let's discuss the other elements that do make it comparable to Cedar Point as well. So we have some good flat rides. Delirium is an awesome frisbee ride. Better than most of the Six Flags ones for the intensity and speed you feel. Then you have Windseeker, which is a Windseeker. Nice view, of course, and pretty great. The drop tower was closed for me, so I can't really talk about that. The one other ride I'll mention briefly is Boo Blasters. It's a barely functional ride. It's not really that great as far as dark rides go, but it's still a little fun. But let's talk something much more significant. The park appearance. It is a beautiful park. Everyone says, oh my gosh, it looks so much nicer than Cedar Point. Well, some people say that, but they're right around the same level. The main thing that I don't like about the appearance is the fact that the skyline, in terms of how the big roller coasters look next to each other, is not impressive. Cedar Point is so grand and well realized, it's beautiful to look at. When you have Wicked Twister previously, Millennium Force, Gatekeeper, Valraven, Raptor all intertwined, it's wonderful. Here the rides are spread out, and it doesn't look as nice from a distance. But up close, you have the very atmospheric River Country and Area 72 parts of the park. The park at night doesn't have a whole lot of lights, but that quiet atmosphere fits really well with the forested setting. So it's kind of beautiful to walk around. Theming is minor, but it looks nice for Mystic Timbers, Orion, Flight of Fear, Backlot Stunt Coaster, and it's a very atmospheric park, even if it's not highly themed like something like Universal's Islands of Adventure. Now I should mention one other thing, and that is the fact that the Friday night I went, the park seemed to be nicer in appearance than the others. I think part of that is lesser crowds, and it just felt like you're walking in a forest with the occasional ride throughout, and it's a different experience. I honestly felt my Friday night was definitely my favorite experience, as even though I only had basically 2 or 3 hours in the park, I experienced so much of the park, and got to enjoy that atmosphere really fully. And if you can go on a really quiet day at Kings Island, I think you'll find it does not feel dead, it feels quiet. And that is always a plus at a park like this. Now in terms of operations, this will be quick. They're great. Some have complained this year that they were not. I guess it depends on what day you went. And at the end of the summer, they were doing an awesome job. Most lines moved insanely well. Banshee was moving really quickly especially, and I feel like the 10-minute line I was in there would have been at least 30 at any other park. And I mean any. So that was kind of on another level. I'll say the only flaws were Invertigo and the Bat were doing pretty badly. One train ops on both, obviously unavoidable for cases for Invertigo, but it wasn't really moving that quickly either. Now I should mention breakdowns. Rides broke down quite a bit while I was there. Diamondback was down the entire Saturday. At one point, Orion, Flight of Fear, which I got stuck on, which was kind of fun, and also the Beast, and at the same time, of course, as I mentioned, Diamondback, were closed. So all those major rides being down, is unfortunate. But you know what? It happens. And based on 2022, that's a lot better than some other parks. Not as good as some others. I feel like Hershey Park did an amazing job keeping rides open this year. But it's better than quite a few, such as the one I've been comparing Kings Island to, and you already know what I'm saying, so I'm not going to say it. I'll keep it a little more subtle. Now for the layout, this is another thing that's kind of, wow, I can't believe they're this good at it. Operations were kind of on a different level, and in the same way, I would say the layout is the best of any park I've ever experienced. It is a large park. I believe, by some measures, it is the largest park in North America. You gotta be a little technical with what counts as park area for that, but this is a huge park. But you'll never have to take a long walk to get anywhere. It's built kinda like Disney World. Everything is a central hub. You go from the central hub to different places relatively equidistant, and there's really nothing I can possibly complain about with the layout. The Bat's kind of in its own area, but I don't even mind because it's not that long a walk. And I felt so surprised how quickly I could get from place to place without running. So yeah, this layout is awesome. If you get turned around at this park, I'm gonna be really mean for a second. It's 100% your fault, and you need a map. It's not at all a park you should get lost in. Most of the rides, because of how they're spread out and tall enough that you can see, are easy to find the entrances to, with maybe Racer being the only exception if you're thinking it's right next to Orion. But this is a very well realized layout, and unlike Cedar Point, which had the disadvantage of limited space and kind of having to be built around this whole bathhouse thing they used to be, this one was a theme park from the start and brilliantly realized. The staff and guests are both very friendly. This is always a good thing to talk about. I think the staff, the one thing that stands out here, I know it's kind of funny to go off on this, but I was recognized by more people here than any other park. I recognized Micah of Coaster Frenzy while there, so that's always fun. Meeting a person that you know instead of being met, I think is honestly a more fun experience. And then I met a guy who I'd previously met at Hershey Park who was working at Kings Island, and that's a real small world situation. A few people I met, that was fun. I was surprised how many recognized me there because, honestly, I'm pretty sure my channel had like 2/3 the subscribers it does right now when I went. But overall, it was very fun to interact with people who had a similar interest. There are plenty of people who love roller coasters at Kings Island if you're trying to talk to someone about them. Most of the guests who I did not know or did not know me were still really approachable, and I think there's a sense of community in Kings Island that's kind of similar to Six Flags Great America, which I mentioned before, because a lot of locals go to Great America. It's a park where so many people just know about the park and they can talk to you about it if you're excited to be there, and it's always a blast. Staff was friendly. My favorite interaction was one guy saying he knew Theme Park Avenue, and the staff guy said, yeah, he makes the rap videos, and that was the funniest thing I'd heard in a while. So I love interacting with the staff. I'll touch on food very quickly. I had Grater's ice cream, and it's good, but that's pretty much all I had. It's not a standout thing, but it's good. And that's pretty much everything to touch on. Overall, Kings Island is the best park in 2022. The roller coaster collection is outshined by only one other, and due to the fact that Cedar Point had weaker operations, and to an extent, weaker staff, and has always had the weaker layout, I think Kings Island was better in 2022. Ask me in any other year, and I had the same experience at Kings Island, I'd probably go with Cedar Point. But at the moment, Kings Island is, and probably should be your, #1 park in America for a bucket list. If there's one park you want to go to that you have not been to yet, and you haven't been to Kings Island, I would say prioritize it over basically any other. If you love roller coasters, it's for you. If you love just walking around and enjoying scenery, this one can be for you as well. If you kind of get nitty gritty with certain aspects like I do with operations and layout and all, you will be right at home here. Because every aspect of this park is great. And it could be greater if they put more ice cream around. Okay, that was a bad pun on Grater's ice cream, but nonetheless, thank you for watching this review. Comment down below your thoughts on Kings Island, subscribe for more reviews and other content. I'll see you next time.